Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the First Unitarian Society of Milwaukee. I'm Reverend Jennifer Nordstrom, honored to serve you as your senior minister. Our opening words this morning are the poem Va'ahavta by Aurora Levins Morales. Va'ahavta. Say these words when you lie down and when you rise up, when you go out and when you return, in times of mourning and in times of joy. Inscribe them on your doorposts, embroider them on your garments, tattoo them on your shoulders, teach them to your children, your neighbors, your enemies, recite them in your sleep. Here in the cruel shadow of empire, another world is possible. Thus spoke the prophet Roque Dalton. Altogether, they have more death than we, but altogether we have more life than they. There is more bloody death in their hands than we could ever wield unless we laid down our souls to become them, and then we would lose everything. So instead, imagine winning. This is your sacred task. This is your power. Imagine every detail of winning, the exact smell of the summer streets in which no one has been shot, the muscles you have never unclenched from worry gone soft as newborn skin, the sparkling taste of food when we know that no one on earth is hungry, that the old man under the bridge and the woman wrapping herself in thin sheets in the back seat of a car, and the children who suck on stones now nest under a flock of roofs that keep multiplying their shelter. Lean with all your being towards that day when the poor of the world shake down a rain of good fortune out of the clouds and justice rolls down like waters. Defend the world in which we win as if it were your child. It is your child. Defend it as if it were your lover. It is your lover. When you inhale and when you exhale, breathe the possibility of another world into the 37.2 trillion cells of your body until it shines with hope, and then imagine more. Don't waver. Don't let despair sink its sharp teeth into the throat with which you sing. Escalate your dreams. Make them burn so fiercely that you can follow them down any dark alleyway of history, including this one, and not lose your way. Hold hands. Share water. Keep imagining so that we and the children of our children's children may live. Will you please rise in body or spirit for our opening hymn, We Would Be One.
Good morning. I'm Reverend Kimberly Tomchuk Carlson, and it is my honor to serve as your Minister of Faith Formation. And the story I have for you today is called Those Shoes, and it's by Maribel Foltz. I have dreams about those shoes. Black high tops, 2 white stripes. Grandma, I want them. There's no room for want around here, just need. Grandma says, what you need are new boots for winter. Brandon T. comes to school in those shoes. He says he's the fastest runner now, not me. I was always the fastest runner before those shoes came along. Nate comes to school in those shoes. Antonio and I count how many times Nate goes to the bathroom, 7 times in one day, just so he can walk up and down the hall real slow. Next, Alan, Jacoby, and Terrence each get a pair. And then one day in the middle of kickball, one of my shoes, it comes apart. Looks like you need a new pair, Jeremy, says Mr. Elfrey, the school counselor, and he brings out a box of shoes and other stuffs he has for kids who need things. He helps me find the only pair of shoes that are just my size, Velcro, like the ones my little cousin Marshall wears, and they have an animal on them from a cartoon I don't think any kid ever watched. When I come back to the classroom, Alan Jacoby takes one look at my Mr. Elfrey shoes and laughs, and so does Terrence and Brandon T. and everyone else. The only kid not laughing is Anthony Parker. At home, Grandma says, how kind of Mr. Elfrey. And I nod and I turn my back. I'm not gonna cry about dumb shoes. But when I'm writing my spelling words later, every word looks like the word shoes. And my grip is so tight that I break my pencil. On Saturday, Grandma says, let's check out those shoes you're really wanting so much. I've got a little bit of money set aside, maybe enough, you never know. At the shoe store, Grandma turns the shoes over so she can check the price, and she sees it and she sits it down heavy. Maybe they wrote it down wrong, I said. Grandma shakes her head. But then I remember the thrift shops. What if there's a rich kid who outgrew their 2 pair of shoes for Christmas and they gave one away? We ride the bus to the first thrift shop. Black cowboy boots, pink slippers, sandals, high heels, every shoe except for the one I want. We ride the bus to the second thrift shop, not a pair of shoes in sight. Around the corner is the third thrift shop, and I see something in the window. Black shoes with 2 white stripes, high tops, perfect shape. $2.50, those shoes. My heart is pounding so fast as I take up my shoes and I hitch up my baggy socks. How exciting, Grandma says. What size are they? I shove my foot into the first shoe, curling my toes to get my heel in. I don't know, but I think they fit. Grandma kneels down on the floor and feels my toes at the end of the shoe. Oh, Jeremy, I can't spend good money on the shoes that don't fit. I put the other shoe on and try walking around. They're okay, I said, holding my breath and praying my toes don't fall off right then and there. My toes don't fall off. I buy them anyway with my own money and I squeeze them on and I limp to the bus stop. At home a few days later, Grandma puts a new pair of snow boots in my closet. She doesn't say a word about my 2 big feet shuffling around in my 2 small shoes. Sometimes shoes stretch, I say, and she gives me a big hug. I check every day, but those shoes, they just don't stretch, and I have to wear my Mr. Elfrey shoes to school instead. And one day during math, I glance at Antonio's shoes. One of them is taped up, and his feet do look smaller than mine. After school, I head to the park to think Antonio is there, the only kid who didn't laugh at my Mr. Elfrey shoes. We shoot baskets, and a loose piece of tape on Antonio's shoes smacks the concrete every time he jumps, and I think, I am not gonna do it. We leap off the swings. I am not gonna do it. We race to one end of the playground to the other. I'm not gonna do it, I say. And Antonio says, do what? Grandma calls me for supper and invites Antonio over too, and after supper, he spies my shoes. How come you don't wear them, Antonio says. I shrug. My hands are sweaty and I can feel him wishing those shoes were his. And that night, I lay awake a long time thinking about Antonio. And when morning comes, I try my shoes on one last time. And before I change my mind, the shoes are in my coat. Snow is beginning to fall as I run across the street to Antonio's apartment. I put the shoes in front of his door, push the doorbell, and run. At school, Antonio is smiling big in his brand new shoes. I feel happy when I look at his face and mad when I look at my Mr. Elfrey shoes. But later, when it's time for recess, something happens. Everywhere there's snow. "Leave your shoes in the hall and change into your boots," a teacher announces. Leave your shoes in the hall. It's when I remember that what I have in my backpack. New boots. New black boots that no kid has ever worn before. Standing in line to go to recess, Antonio leans forward and says, "Thanks." I smile and I give him a nudge. "Let's race." The end.
I invite you to join me in a time of contemplation now, which will be followed by silence, followed by the seated singing of hymn 123, Spirit of Life. Do whatever you need to do to find yourself in your body. Maybe you use your breath. Maybe you feel your sit bones in the seat beneath you, grounding you. Maybe you feel the edges of your skin reaching out into all that is. Spirit of life and love, Holy One of our being and our becoming, that which is sacred within, among, and beyond us. May we feel the gentle movement of compassion today. May those who are suffering be held with love and understanding in the pain. May those who are momentarily separated from compassion return to it and feel connection and understanding for the beautiful and suffering world. May this connection with compassion move us to act, to care for one another, and for all that is. May it be so.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the First Unitarian Society of Milwaukee. I'm Tom Hester, and I'm pleased to serve as your worship associate. We are a faith community of many identities. We welcome people of all genders, sexualities, ages, races, ethnicities, histories, abilities, and bodies. We welcome your mind, your heart, and your spirit. We welcome all you are carrying with you today, and all your heart longs to set down. We also welcome all the people watching online as we live stream the service. Hello, online folks. And we enthusiastically welcome guests joining us today. If you are a guest visiting in person and want to contact us, please fill out the welcome card located in the pew rack in front of you and drop it off in the offering plates that will come around in a few minutes. If you are visiting online and want to connect, a link to connect with us will soon appear on your chat for you to click and to fill out. Someone from the church will reach out to you and connect with you. After the service, we invite you to join us for a social hour across the hall in the Lean House Common Room. Some accessibility notes, hearing assist devices, and large print hymnals and orders of service are in the back of the sanctuary, along with worship activity bags for children and anyone who wants them. There's a fragrance-free area in the front right pews. If you're watching online, you can enable YouTube's closed captioning on your viewing device. The Feast for Funds silent auction is almost here. Please see the announcement for details. And some of you may have noticed the new art exhibit, and the artist himself, Christopher T. Woods, will join us following the second service and make some remarks about his work. I invite you to share in our First Church purpose by joining me in a uniform affirmation of our mission, which is printed in your order of service. We gather to nurture the spirit, engage the mind, and inspire action. Every week, we practice our values through sharing our resources. Our pledges are at the core of our spiritual practice of generosity. In addition, the church shares half of non-pledge cash in our offering plate with a community organization practicing our values of interdependence. This month, we share 50% of all non-pledge cash in our offering with Cor El Centro. Cor El Centro is a nonprofit with a mission to enhance the health and wellness of our community by offering integrative, natural health services focused on empowerment, healing, safety, and reducing barriers to access. The offering will now be gratefully received as we sing seated hymn number 1031. I invite all children, youth, and faith formation volunteers to sing the first verse, then follow Reverend Kimberly to the Lean House Common Room, and then downstairs for faith formation. If your child needs to check in, please join them. May the practice of giving bring us joy. My first clinical encounters with addictions came as a first-year psychiatric resident. Fresh out of medical school, I would often cringe when called to the emergency room to evaluate people with severe intoxication. They were usually loud, belligerent, and often under police custody. I had no idea what happened to these people after I performed my duty, which was to decide to either discharge them from the emergency room or admit them to the hospital for observation and detox. As a second-year resident, I worked on the inpatient psychiatric unit. Here, my responsibilities for persons with addiction was primarily brief alcohol detox. I was surprised after a day or two that the loud and belligerent behavior had vanished and been replaced with regret and reason. I still had no idea what happened to them after I ordered their discharge with a referral to outpatient counseling. In my last year of psychiatric residency, everything changed. I was involved in a 2-week immersive training in addiction treatment. The program included lectures and participation in small group therapy with 12-step meetings. All of the administrative and clinical staff were persons in recovery from addiction, and they were entirely different from those that I had encountered in the ER and inpatient unit. They radiated deep self-knowledge, unflinching honesty, and a passion to help others with addiction. They were not in the acute phase of active addiction, they were in recovery. I was most impacted by the counselor of my small group, Rusty. Rusty described the pain and suffering his addiction had inflicted on others in his life, especially those he cared about and loved the most. I felt a deep compassion for Rusty as he described his many struggles to get sober and his growth into recovery. And I witnessed the impact his personal experiences had on others who were striving to attain recovery. And this changed the entire arc of my psychiatric career. Rather than follow the expected career path that focused on services for people with mental illness, I dedicated the next 11 years to serve people with addiction. When I eventually moved on to mental health-focused services, my perspective was dramatically altered by my experience with those, like Rusty, that had attained recovery. I worked directly with mental health consumers to reform public mental health services to become more recovery-based and include mental health consumers in all levels of the treatment system, including direct patient care. In the last chapter of my professional career, I worked to help the state of Hawaii's mental health system emerge from federal court oversight. I worked closely with mental health consumers to plan and implement recovery-based community mental health services. At one point, relations between the state and the federal court became highly contentious, and the presiding magistrate called a highly publicized urgent hearing that focused largely on me. As I entered the courtroom to take my seat in the front row, I was greeted by 2 mental health consumers who told me they were not going to allow me to sit alone. I felt no longer alone and vulnerable. I felt the comforting embrace of their compassion. We walked in together and they sat at my side as I weathered fiery and often personal judicial pronouncements. My experience with compassion had come full circle. From developing compassion for Rusty's struggle with addiction at the beginning of my career, to accepting compassion from mental health consumers near the end. I am forever changed and grateful.
A few weeks ago, when news of the executive order telling the Joint Task Force on Terrorism to investigate various viewpoints the government does not like came out, I freaked out. The NSPM-7 denounces anti-Americanism, anti-capitalism, and anti-Christianity as violent and requires the task force to investigate Antifa, which is not an organization but is just shorthand slang for opposition to fascism or anti-fascism. Given that I, as you are well aware, pretty regularly denounce fascism from this pulpit, I was scared. Of course, that is the intention of an order like this. It is intended to scare people who are resisting authoritarianism in the hopes that we will stop resisting. Don't worry about the end of this story, my friends. As you can tell by me preaching this sermon, I am not going quiet anytime soon. But in the moment when I read the executive order, and in my fear, I did text a friend seeking reassurance. Now, to be fair to my friend and to her reactions, I did not text the word, "I am scared," nor did I text, "Can you reassure me?" Instead, I texted 3 paragraphs that I copied and pasted from Heather Cox Richardson, and I expected my friend to then read those paragraphs, infer my needs, and respond with reassurance. To no one's surprise, she did not do that. Instead, my friend texted me back, that she couldn't do politics right now and just wanted to have fun. I was upset, but let's give my friend a little grace around a 3-paragraph block of text, none of which was in my voice. But truthfully, my immediate reaction, it was not grace. I freaked out even more than I had already been about, authoritarianism. And obviously, I thought in my freak out, this, number one, it was a friendship-ending text. Also, it was obviously an indication that humanity itself was doomed. And that no one cared about the trajectory of authoritarian dissent, and that I would be arrested, and even my loved ones would just go about their business having fun. So, you see the slippery slope of my own fear in my own mind. But, dear congregants, worry not, this is not the end of the story. Despite being quite triggered in the moment, I did not text back. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I went for a walk. I did some yelling in my head, and then I phoned a different friend. Happily, while this friend is just as freaked out about authoritarianism, they were not triggered by this particular text. Isn't it amazing how you can stay grounded for the ones you love, even if their triggers mirror your own? I'm so very grateful for friendship and support systems. Anyway, I read the text aloud to my friend for some emotional validation, and they very quickly validated me. Yes, that must have hurt, they said. Yes, it's fair to be scared. And then they went in for the wisdom. This avoidance is also a coping mechanism, they said. When you're scared, your coping mechanism is to reach out for reassurance, which is a normal coping mechanism, and also avoiding the scary stimulus is a normal coping mechanism. Right, of course. I know that. I know how to expand past my own fear into compassion for someone else's way of coping with all of this. It's just much easier when I'm doing that in y'all's relationships than in my own. So I took a deep breath and I tried to open myself to the possibility that my friend was just dealing with the stress of all of this in a different way. Or maybe she didn't understand what I was scared of. Or maybe it was just an avoidant response to this political nightmare that we're in. I did a day of breathing before I responded to the text. And then what I did was made plans to see my friend in person so that we could spend some time with one another, reconnecting, reminding each other, both her and me, of our friendship, laughing with each other, connecting in trust. In his book, Belonging Without Othering, How We Save Ourselves and the World, John A. Powell and Stephen Menendian posit that authoritarianism is a response to rapid social change. Then they argue that we human beings, we have two options when we make meaning of rapid social change. The first option is that we can tell ourselves the story that change is bad, change is scary, the world is out of control, and there is some other to blame for it. The second option is that we can tell ourselves the story that the world is changing very fast, and it's a little scary, but if we come together and work together, we're all going to be okay. We're in this together. The first kind of story, what Powell and Menendian call a breaking narrative is associated with fear and with blame. Those are the emotions that go along with it. I'm scared, it's your fault. The second kind of story, what Menendian and Powell call a bridging narrative, is associated with curiosity and with hope. I wonder what this change will be about. I wonder how you're feeling. I'm curious about what is changing and happening and how we can be in relationship, and I hope that we can make a more beautiful world together. The breaking narrative, it leads us further down the path towards authoritarianism, while the bridging narrative, it reconnects us with our neighbors and leads us back to each other as a people. And this country is full of beautiful, kind, loving people. We are genuinely wiser, stronger, braver together. But any one of us can be coerced, invited into the fear narrative. Any one of us can drop down into fear and respond to each other with fight or flight or freeze. The only way out of that, decades of psychological research has shown, is to honor the fear and to calm it down. The part of our brain, the part of our processing self that is afraid, that little, oh my God, what's happening? Obviously the whole world is a mess part, it needs to be heard. It needs to be honored, or it will just override the other parts of our thinking selves. Compassion is the tool that can hear and hold the fear. Compassion is the voice of the friend on the other end of the line saying, yes, I'm sure that hurt. Yes, it makes sense that you're afraid. It is the friend who's here at church with you, nodding at you when you're talking and saying, yes, yes, that's so real. What you're feeling is so real and so valid. When my friend and I finally sat down and talked with one another about what had happened in that text exchange, she shared two things with me that helped me have a greater understanding of her experience. First, she said that she didn't really have the foundation of knowledge for understanding the rapid and frightening changes that are happening at the national political level. And she just felt out of depth in a detailed conversation about that. And second, she shared that after experiencing some pretty serious loss and trauma in her personal life, live for today, be present, have fun in the moment, had become her coping mechanism as a way to be grateful in this present moment, even in the face of loss, in the face of death, in the face of real threat, real danger. And that is a beautiful and important perspective to hold in the work that we do for a better world. It is a beautiful and important gift to worriers in that work like me. At the Pastoral Care Associates retreat at church last week, our PCAs, as we call them, Pastoral Care Associates, sharpened their compassion and understanding skills. Pastoral Care Associates are the trained listeners in our congregation. They support you when you are going through difficult times. So last week at the retreat, the PCAs strengthened their muscles around caring across differences, particularly differences of culture, and how to deepen our understanding of one another when we're listening and caring and supporting one another across differences. The practice of listening with care, listening with the intent to understand and connect, it develops our compassion. It develops our cultural humility. The reality of this world is that we are never, ever going to know everything about another person's experience or all the ways that their life and their culture has shaped their perspective, their understanding of the world. The good news is that we can practice. We can practice listening with care. We can learn how differences affect people that we care about, and then we can use compassion to act, to change the circumstances causing harm. There are many different coping mechanisms people are employing in this moment to deal with the nightmare that the United States is in the middle of a slide towards authoritarianism. There are political scholars who are saying right now that the United States is no longer a democracy. That is very scary. All of your feelings are valid. It makes sense to be afraid right now. It makes sense to have that part of our brains activated. Your coping mechanisms are also valid. And we need to recognize that so many different factors shape different people's coping mechanisms, from privilege to culture to individual life experiences and responses to those experiences. In our practice of compassion, the work is to meet people where they are, where you are, every single one of you, and to honor the reality that has led you to this moment and your choices. We need everyone in this fight against authoritarianism. We need every single person to get involved at some level. And in order to get there, we have to understand one another and our natural, human, person-specific responses to what is happening. Organizing to make change, to build movements. It is all about relationships. Not about information, loved ones, but relationships of trust and care and understanding. The Social Justice Council has this conversation every single year. People do not change their minds or their behavior because you give them more information. It might seem like they should. If people just knew better, they would do better. But actually, that is not the way most people work. I know it is the way some of you work. And I love that about you. I really do. It is wonderful. You are ethical people. You are information-based people. But it is also not the norm. Most people change through relationship. They change because someone they love listened to them and met them where they were, in what they were feeling in their own life experiences. They change because someone they trust invited them into a deeper assessment of their own self-interest in this moment. They change because someone they are connected to showed them a way that they could be involved that is safe and doable in their life circumstances. We do need every single person in this fight. And that also means every single fighter fighting from their own location. It doesn't mean all of it needs to look the same. It's not all protest and getting on the streets, even though it was a delight to see you all yesterday. But there were like 50 of you, 100 of you out on the streets yesterday. It was lovely. It was a great time. You are amazing. And There are dozens, hundreds of ways to be involved that are not that. In her 2022 book, Social Change Now, a guide for reflection and connection, Deepa Iyer identifies 10 distinct social change roles, from frontline responders to caregivers to storytellers to healers. Being part of the movement can look like caring for frontline responders. It can look like cooking for people who are hungry. It can look like singing at church. It can look like telling stories, being part of those building narratives. Get in where you fit in, my loves. And then bring as many of your loved ones in as you can, meeting people where they are, using compassion as your guide. We do not need the work to all look the same, but we do need everyone engaged in the work. The poem Vahavta, our opening words this morning, were written by Aurora Levens Morales. Levens Morales is a Puerto Rican and Jewish artist and activist, and the title of the poem, Vahavta, comes from the Hebrew scriptures, the same verse that was referenced in our opening hymn and in the interlude that the choir is about to sing. Vahavta means, and you shall love. It is the beginning of the scripture and the Jewish prayer. And you shall love God with all your heart and your soul and your might. In her poem, Levens Morales turns this love towards the whole and the holy of humanity. And you shall love each other. You shall love this world with all your heart and your soul and your might. That is what loving the holy means. It means loving each other because we are the flecks of the holy shining in this world, and all together we have more life than the deathmongers, more love than the fearmongers. They may make money off of death, make billions off of fear, and try to turn us against one another. But as our love grows, so too do our hearts, filled with compassion, big enough to encompass the truth of that text. We are one. And any attempt to divide and conquer us is just a lie. We are one. And when we rise up and when we lie down, when we go out and when we return, we whisper the words, another world is possible. Not only possible, but true, alive now, beginning and beating in the power of our own blood and bones, in the strength of our hearts, to feel that compassion and understanding, thereby calming down the fear and moving beyond it to a love that is greater than the divisive lies, a love that is greater even than the billionaires' lives, that they are separate from us because we are all one. And in this moment that each of us was made for, we are teaching and learning that lesson again and again and again. In the loving practice of compassion that is our power, may we keep moving together towards more beauty and more harmony in the truth that we are one. May it be so. Well, I'm told that it's raining, so we are not going to do an emergency evacuation today. Or at least at 9. If you really are excited about it, come back at 11. We'll try again. Instead, we're going to sing our closing hymn, 131, Love Will Guide Us. Before we do that, I just want to say all of your feelings, all of your coping mechanisms, they are valid. Scary out there right now, friends. But when it feels like it's too much, let love and compassion guide you back to the truth that we're all in this together. We are inextricably entangled with one another. We are one, and then let us act accordingly. Will you please rise in body or spirit for our recessional hymn number 131, Love Will Guide Us.